President Trump says Ed Gillespie didn't embrace his agenda, but just a few days ago, former Trump strategist Steve Bannon said Gillespie was a changed man. Here's Bannon just on Sunday.
He's really embraced the Trump agenda, and here in the last 4 weeks, and the Washington Post is reporting tonight, he may be up 1 or 2 points. If you look in Virginia, you see the grassroots are fired up. They're coming out now to embrace the Trump agenda, and as Gillespie has now articulated it, was the grassroots show up, we win.
So that was on Sunday, 2 days before Election Day. But now ABC News reporting last night, 2 sources close to Bannon say he offered to rally for Gillespie, but the campaign rejected it. Quote, Bannon camp fuming tonight as they reportedly, Jim Van High, were kept out of the race. You can go down last night, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, the House, that huge wave in the House of Democrats winning in Virginia. New Jersey, Phil Murphy winning as expected, but in a blowout thanks to Donald Trump and Chris Christie, some combination there. The state of Maine voting to expand Medicaid. This was, talking to Democrats last night, some kind of catharsis for the last year. They feel like they fought, they feel like they resisted, to use their term, over the last year. And this is what happened. What lessons will be learned from Democrats? What happens from here?
Well, I think what matters most is, number one, if you look at Virginia and New Jersey, these are states Democrats should win. If you look at the states, if you look at what happens historically in off-year elections, I'll stipulate that. I don't think we're hyperventilating and over-interpreting what happened in these elections for that Scott Brown reason that Joe pointed out earlier. Imagine this morning if Gillespie had won. Imagine the finger pointing. Imagine the funk that Democrats would be in. Suddenly that changes, and for the first time in a year, they have a reason to smile. They have a reason to believe that money will flow in, that momentum will drift their way, and that they now have a formula that could lead them back to power. This doesn't mean they do win control of the House.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
There still is a funk, but for the first time, look at all the punditry beforehand said Northam's running a terrible race in the final weeks. He won by 24 points among people who made up their mind at the last minute. And so that tells me that, well, maybe it was Gillespie's racially tinged campaign at the end that backfired, that we did not fully appreciate, that there'd be consequences for that. And maybe that's why women went by 22 points for Northam.
Wow.
Gillespie won men. Yeah. Women won the election again for Democrats.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's, Mika, that's what I was saying. This year, again, all the tweets that people were sending and messages they were sending when we did our Facebook Live yesterday afternoon, one of the reasons why we shifted at about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon and said, wait a second, it looks like Northam's probably going to win this, is because we heard, again, women standing in line. Of course, men did too. But it's the first time I've heard people saying women standing in the rain in Northern Virginia and they're not going to move. Women standing in Charlottesville and they're not going to move. We were getting these messages across Twitter, across Facebook Live, that there were women that were going to send a message, a strong message to Donald Trump. And they did.
And that's a huge opportunity. That's a huge moment. That's a huge reaction to Trump. That's not necessarily a galvanization of the Democratic Party, Eddie, which is now, the opportunity is definitely before the Democrats. The question is, can they run with it?
Right. I think this is really complex, and we have to kind of parse it. I think one of the things we have to see is the convergence of 3 factors, right? That is the against Trump, the resistance, how that manifests itself in terms of activism and organizing on the ground, and then how it evidenced itself in turnout. Yeah. And what we see is that there are folks who were motivated by resisting Trump.
By what they don't like.
By what they don't like.
What they saw with health care, what they're seeing with guns, what they're seeing with this president. That's great.
And what we also saw down ballot, which was really interesting, is Our Revolution, Bernie Sanders folks, they were getting elected. And they weren't just getting elected against Trump. They were being motivated by a range of other issues, that single payer, range of issues around gun control, a whole range of issues. So this is going to be complex. And what's interesting, too, the urban vote turned out very high as well. There was a higher turnout of black voters in urban centers as well.
Joe.
You know, though, Eddie, though, I think also you have to look back and you have to look at the local angle of this, too. Local being Charlottesville. And I can't I can't believe that a lot of Virginians just said, not in my state. And I also believe something else, too. I believe there are a lot of people. I know a lot of Democrats, a lot of moderates, a lot of progressives on every issue except this one, that don't want the Confederate monuments moved. But you know what? They also don't want a candidate using those monuments as a wedge issue at the end of the campaign, especially with the backdrop of Charlottesville. I just think Charlottesville also not only hung over this race, but I think just like the Oklahoma City bombing was a turning point in Bill Clinton's presidency, I'm not so sure that Charlottesville is not a moment that historians are going to look back on and see Donald Trump's reaction to that and say, that is really when Republicans, independents, Democrats all became repulsed by what they were seeing happening in front of them, and how fascinating that after that, the first big test of Trumpism came in that state.
Joe, I think you're absolutely right. And I think we can make a general claim. We could see the trap of the culture wars. That if you actually take that tack, it locks you into a specific segment of the population, just that third, and you can find yourself in some ways getting trapped in the trap itself. So
Charlottesville and Sutherland Springs, Texas, just days ago. How can we not have that in your mind when you're thinking about the direction this country is taking?
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.